present. Cool. Hello everyone, and welcome to our audio workshop today. I'm thinking this is going to be like the last workshop in this quarter's Intro to Music series. We've kind of gone over the basic tools we need to actually formulate a song. Today we're going to be going over the circle of fifths, which I think is awesome and super important. It's a powerful tool. But after that, we're just going to be going over some things that you might want to experiment with, as you move forward, because we kind of have laid down the basics so far this quarter. And yeah. So before we begin, we've already, I kind of just said this, but we've already seen the basic tools we need to make some music. This workshop covers some other tools that you can use to experiment with. You don't need to use all of them to actually have, or to have a good sounding song. By tools, I'm mainly talking about a bunch of scales and things you can do with all these scales that we have not yet seen. You don't have to use all of them. Experiment with them on your own time and see how that works for you. And the circle of fifths is important. It's like your musical cheat sheet. So here's the circle of fifths. It's incredibly helpful, I would say. It's a very powerful musical tool, and here's some things that it can do for us. It shows us the sharps and flats of every major and minor key. So it's kind of like a clock, because there's like 12 notes, 12 unique notes in our Western musical system. So if you want to actually draw it out, you draw it out kind of like a clock, and then each of these notes is each one of the notes in our Western musical system. So here we have C that has no sharps and flats. We add sharps going clockwise around the circle. So because it is the circle of fifths, what we do is we take a note and then we go up to scale degree 5 of that major scale, and then we're like, okay, on this is the notes that I add, said sharp to the scale. We have an order for this, like how we add sharps and flats to the scales. We're going to go into that in a bit, but other things that the circle of fifths helps us do, it helps us build our basic chords. So say, I want to make a C major scale. Well, not C major scale, C major chord. Well, on the circle of fifths, if I go over here to the right to where G is, I know that in my C major scale, G is my scale degree 5. And so I now know 2 notes of my major scale or minor scale, and then I could just find the third by, counting if I need to. So that's another thing I can do for us. It gives us relative majors and minors, which we will go into in a little bit, and also helps us decide how to modulate from one key to another. Is everything sounding good so far? I will explain definitions in a second. Cool. So a relative minor is a minor key that shares the same key signature as a given major key. So say I'm over here, and to clarify, all of the letters on the outside of the circle that are capitalized, these represent major scales. Everything on the inside of the circle are minor scales, or minor keys, I should say. So if we are here in A flat major, well, here in the circle, we have F minor. If you were to, if you want to actually do this, like in your head to actually make sure this is correct, if I was in A flat major and I go up to scale degree 6, I would get to F. And so F is the relative minor of A flat major. You can do this with any scale, really. So like if I were at C, I could go up to scale degree 6, so I could go C, scale degree 1, D, E, F, G, A, and scale degree 6. And so A is my relative minor. But all of it's laid out here for you, so you don't have to necessarily worry about finding that yourself. And a relative major is kind of the opposite of that. So if I'm in C minor and I want to know, what major key shares the same key signature, I know that it's E flat major. So each major scale has a minor, or each major key has a minor key that shares the same key signature, basically. And this shows you that. And then there's another thing that the circle fifths helps us with, and that's with modulation. Modulation is just a fancy word for us changing keys in a piece of music. One important thing to note about modulation is that you're not going to want to jump from, say, E flat major all the way to A major. The circle of fifths lets us know which keys have the most notes in common, because, say, we're starting at C major, the only difference between C major and G major is that in G major, F is sharp. And they share all the other same notes. So say I'm in A major and I want to, modulate into a different key. I might want to pick something nearby, like E major, or say I want to get like halfway across the circle, I might steadily make my way there throughout my piece of music, instead of jumping, directly from here to like here or here. Because if you try to change keys, like from one key to another, and the two keys do not share many notes in common, it might sound very strange. Like it might not sound natural to flow from one key to another in your music. So be aware of that. The circle can help you with that. Any questions there?
I'm good.
Oh, okay. You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you remember early on in the series of workshops, I said that there's an order of sharps and flats. I didn't really touch on that, but now I feel that it is more relevant. So we add sharps and flats, going around with our key signatures in a specific order. So the order in which we add sharps is F, C, G, D, A, E, B. You might memorize this as saying fat cats go down alleys eating birds, which is the classic way to remember this. There's some others, if you really want to get into that, some ridiculous ones out there. And we add flats literally in the opposite order. And it's literally B, G, C, F. So B, E, A, B, G, C, F. You could say bead and then greatest common factor, because that's the thing they teach you in math. But yeah, we also remove, let's see, how many of us are computer science majors? Okay, it's like a stack, basically. So, say we're in B major, right? And we have all of our sharps. Or at least if we're going on our circle, we add all of our sharps. So we add F first, and then D, and then G. D, wait, what? It said F and then D, wait. F and then C, G, D, and then A. If we want to start removing sharps, we go in the opposite direction. And so the first thing we remove here is A, and then going backwards, you remove D, G, C, and then F, and then we're back at C major. You can do this with the flats too. So like, if we're going to F major, we add B flat, and then B flat major, we add E flat, etc., and then we take them off in the same manner, if that makes sense. We all good? Cool. Alright, so I'm going to go over some different types of scales, more so what they are, and just letting you be aware that they exist and that you can play with them and write music in them, do whatever you'd like with them. So for the next slides, just to make sure that I'm being clear with what I mean, we talk about scale degrees being raised. We mean that the scale degree is being moved up by a half step. So say I'm in A major and I want to move my scale degree 7, or I'm trying to let's see. I'll start with C major, because C major is simple. So if a C major, if we want to raise our scale degree 7 up a half step, you know, we move B to B sharp, which makes no sense in C major, but essentially we would be moving, you know, the scale degree up a half step. If we lower a scale degree, if we're talking about a scale degree being lowered, then we lower it by a half step. And the reason why we say this is because, say we're in a key where, you know, a note that we would like, you know, raised or lowered is already sharp or flat. Instead of taking this already flat note and saying, hey, let's flat the note, and having this weird thing where it's like, okay, so is it double flat? Like, what's going on? Instead, we just avoid that altogether and say it's lowered. Or, you know, if a note is already sharp, and instead of saying, let's sharp that note and saying, okay, is it double sharp now? You just say, we raise it. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, that was kind of a roundabout way of saying it. We're good? Okay. So I'm going to be using the terms raised and lowered in the next slide, so that's why I'm bringing this up. Alright, so here's some scales that you might want to experiment with. We have our whole tone scale. So unlike major or minor scales where we've seen a pattern of whole steps and half steps, whole tone scales only consist of whole steps. You might be familiar with hearing them in like reading sequences, that type of thing. Actually, let's do a thing. Actually, no. Hold on. If I can remember the, there we go. Let's listen to some, actually. If I can remember, there it is. Open FL20. Just so we can get an idea of what these sound like. Natural minor scale, we've seen it already. It's the only minor scale we've seen so far that I've talked about. If you take a major scale and you start on scale degree 6 of that major scale, as I've said before, you get the natural minor of that scale. We also call it a relative minor. When you have a harmonic minor, a simple way to look at it is that it's the natural minor scale, except for with a raised scale degree 7. So if you remember, in our natural minor scale, there is a whole step between our scale degree 7 and our tonic. And so when you raise scale degree 7 in a natural minor scale, there's now a half step between the two. And then melodic minor, you can think of as a major scale with the lowered scale degree 3. And melodic minor is kind of a weird one because this is a pattern that's used only when ascending generally. And then when you come back down the scale, it's natural minor. It's the weird one. And yeah, so let's listen to these a bit. Where'd you go? I literally just opened it. Hold on. Oh, it's right here. Okay. So I'm gonna open FL keys because it's really basic and I'm lazy. I'll raise this an octave. Why not? All right, wait. Hold on. There we go. So as you know, this is our major scale. There we go. That's our major scale. I'm gonna cheat here because I don't know how to play piano. We have our natural minor scale. Then we have our harmonic minor scale. But yeah, you can get some really nice, or some really interesting qualities out of using the different minor scales in your music. And then there's melodic scale ascending. And then descending, it would just be natural minor, which is kind of weird. But yeah. So yeah. So if you're in a minor key, feel free to just use whatever minor scales you see fit. Harmonic and melodic minor scales are named like that because of how, you know, historically they've been used like for harmony and for melody, but you don't have to stick to those specifically, and you can use them in your work as you see fit. So yeah. Any questions there? Cool. Oh, I never went over the whole tone scale. Wait, hold on. I don't want to leave that out. It's like a dream sequence. Is it here? I hope it's here. I should have checked for it first. I did not see it. I'm blind. But it is very dream sequency. Let's do it this way. Pretty sure. Where are you? I could have sworn it was like here.
Other whole tone?
Whole tone?
Like
Oh my goodness, I see it. Yeah, thank you.
It's other, so.
I see. That's what it sounds like if you play all the notes together. I don't think you want that. I'm gonna cheat here. So has Brandon happened to go through any of this at all?
Wait, what?
Has Brandon happened to go through any of this at all? Well, either way, so what I'm doing here, if you just see this, you click on this cog and you go to this wrench here. If you're in FL Studio, there's this lovely tool I like to use here called the arpeggiator. It essentially takes any notes that you're playing together and turns them into arpeggios for you, which is really nice. So it just plays all the notes individually, and you can tell it whether or not you want to just go up or just go down, or like be random, go up and down, and then you can adjust timing here, which is really nice. So let's see what happens if I play a whole tone scale just ascending. You can do stuff like that. Yep. And that's basically a whole tone scale. If I like dream sequence. Yeah. But yeah. Alright, back to the slides. So that's what all these scales sound like. Are there any questions there? Okay, cool. So now we're going to talk about the 7 major modes. I thought I'd like to give an introduction to the fact that these exist and that these, I just find them interesting. I need to play with them more personally myself, but a lot of these are not necessarily considered major nor minor scales. I've essentially just written down here what I feel is like the easiest way to like think of these as. So the Ionian mode, congratulations, you've already seen it. It's the same as a major scale. Ionian scale is the same as a major scale. Dorian is a natural minor with a raised scale degree 6. Phrygian is a natural minor with a lowered scale degree 2. Lydian is a major scale with a raised scale degree 4, etc. So various notes are raised and lowered depending on what mode we're in. I'm actually gonna let's demonstrate what these are. So I'm going to just put our major scale here. Sure, we'll be in, yes, D sharp major, because that's a good key. That's our major scale. Let's put our natural minor scale down too, just for reference. Let me label, no, not that, that's not what I need to do. I'm gonna do this. There we go. So we got our major, we have our minor. If you're wondering how I'm making these markers, it's Control T, and then I'm just right-clicking and renaming them. I should clarify. I know what I'm I'm doing. So we have our major scale, which you've heard before. And then we have our natural minor. Also, this is not playing the tonic lap. There we go. Oop. I'm gonna readjust this. This is fine. Okay, so first, let's go over our, we have Ionian. Let's go over Dorian, why not? So it's, oops, my bad. So natural minor with the raised scale degree 6. So we have just about all the same notes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6 is going to be raised, so that's a C, and everything else is the same. So Dorian mode sounds like this. And for comparison, so not as minor, you could say. It's all somewhere in between. So that's our Dorian mode. Let's see. Phrygian, natural minor with lower scale degree 2. So we take our F here, which is our scale degree 2, and we lower that. So we have all these notes. Yes. All right. There we go. I should label these. So we have our Dorian. And then we have, I'm sorry, Phrygians. So just for comparison, let's play our natural minor and then our Phrygian scale. All right. Just getting a kind of a feel of all these. I'm probably not going to go through all of these because this is probably extremely boring. But yeah, listen to these on your own. I find the Mixolydian scale particularly interesting because it has a lowered scale degree 7. And if you remember from our discussion on chords, the dominant 7 chord is the basis for a lot of things in jazz. So the Mixolydian scale has that built in. So yeah, keep that in mind. Also, Aeolian is the same as our natural minor scale. So yeah, play with these. I have another slide here. Oh, I should actually go into presentation mode. So just a little more about modes here. You can write music in modes, just like you can write any other major or minor key. And there's also this little fancy thing called modal interchange, or also called modal mixture. It's essentially when you borrow chords from one mode and use them in your chord progression. So like say you're in A major and you decide, you know, for one of the chords in your chord progression you want to borrow from Phrygian mode. You're allowed to do that, but you just have to make sure that when you're borrowing chords that you have the original key that you're in established. So which is why when you borrow a chord, you need to make sure that it's preceded and followed by chords that are in the original key that you're in. But yeah, that's another way you can spice up your music, make things sound a bit jazzy. It's something that I'd like to experiment more with myself. But yeah, feel free to play with this as much as you want. It's really good so far. Cool. This is some advice just for me. Just throwing these in here that don't really particularly belong with our chord or, I mean, with our scale or circle of fifth stop. But a couple things. This is in case you run across these issues ever. So, thinking of chords when you have a melody. This is generally what I do. I take the notes from my melody, and I do my best to deduce, you know, what what scale I'm using, and then I do my best to try to form chords based off of that. It's a bit of trial and error, but you know, it's kind of kind of a struggle. Just doing my best there to try to form chords under a melody. It might take some work, but hopefully that you have results that you are happy of. And then I feel like this is more helpful advice that I have. But if you have chords and you don't know what to put as a melody, what I would suggest is to think of jazz improv basics. Essentially, when you're playing jazz, one super helpful thing to know is what scale the chords that are in the chord changes fall under. So say I have an A7 chord, that's an A major chord with a dominant 7, so I'm in A mixolydian. So I write out my A mixolydian scale, and I borrow notes from there to use in my melody. For if I have for as long as my A7 chord lasts, and then I look at my other chords in my chord progression, and I do the same type of thing. And then what I do is I find these transition notes between the chords that I have. So these are notes that the two chords that I'm using in my chord progression have in common, or at least the scales of the chords in my chord progression have in common. So I like to lead into different chords in my chord progression with notes that the two chords that are adjacent to each other share. If that makes sense. Are we all good there? Okay. Cool. That's actually about it for this workshop. Here's the resources document in general. Are there any questions that you guys have about anything I just went over, or just creating music in general? Because I think that this is going to be about the last workshop in this series, unless you guys have anything specific you'd like me to go over in the future.
Have you? I don't know if that would be too specific. Maybe I guess for them probably ornamentations, so accents to those.
Oh yeah, accents. Oh yeah, it's different ways you can articulate notes and trills and things like that.
Yeah, but
I see.
Honestly,
it's very specific.
It's very niche.
Mm-hmm. They're helpful to know though. But, yeah. That might be something that I go over in the future. But yeah, thank you for listening. My workshop.